Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us. Many of our Detect and Detox kit users have high exposure to toxic chemicals through the foods that they consume and how they prepare these foods. And toxic chemical can leach into your foods during food preparation and cooking, which then you eat and absorb in your body. Many of these chemicals can disrupt your hormones, promote infertility, and cause weight gain. That's why we're such big fans, advocates for using non-toxic cookware. And today we're going to be joined by Erik Bergstrom from Xtrema Cookware. And Xtrema Cookware is 100% ceramic cookware, which is important to differentiate from coated ceramic, which we will discuss. So here you are.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing very well.
Thank you so much for joining
You're
us.
welcome. I'm excited.
Yes, same here. Like I think there's many different type of ceramics out there, and we're big fans and advocate for non-toxic cookware. So it'll be so awesome to learn from you today. But before we start, tell us a little bit about yourself and then how you started working with Xtrema Cookware.
For sure. So, yeah, my start with Xtrema was probably about 17 years ago, in the prototyping phase and kind of the
Wow.
behind the scenes of seeing my father, who's the founder of Xtrema and CEO, start the company from scratch. So, um, I got to see sort of before I was even working for the company in the capacity I am now, um, all of the ins and outs of my father transitioning from working for Corning, which was a major player in the houseware space in glass and ceramics, and transitioning to launch his own cookware company and really launch around an idea of creating a pure ceramic cookware that could take temperatures up the stovetop and not just be used for traditional bakeware or serveware. So I kind of got a unique view because I didn't have the responsibility of necessarily working for the company, but I got to see sort of my dad do what he loved best, and see all the ins and outs of what that looked like to be a part of him making this idea that he had a reality. And now to work for my father for the last 3 years, in the capacity I am now, it's like full circle because it's like now I get to kind of run alongside of him and making his dream happen, and it's pretty cool. So in some ways I've always worked for Xtrema, but other ways it's only been about 3 years. So
But that's pretty amazing. You literally see the story unfold, and then now you're like also part of it. This is really cool. It's a really nice story.
yeah.
Well, tell us about the mission and the values of Xtrema Cookware.
Yeah, so I think the mission, I know it's a little bit, about our origin story, but the mission really was to create a pure ceramic cookware that could be used in every single phase of the kitchen, every single part of the cooking process. In modern shapes, that could be used on and take the temperatures of the stovetop. And so we feel like ceramic is one of the most unique and versatile and historical materials that has been used across all cultures throughout the world. One of the original materials used for all of this. And we felt like a lot of the innovation that was happening was, in design and more of the like the finer and the art side of pottery and ceramics,
Yeah.
but not necessarily in the cookware space. And so our mission really is to create like pure, unadulterated ceramic cookware that can be used as a versatile piece across all phases of cooking, and to do so with integrity and transparency, and share the share with the customer how we do that, our process of doing that, and also things like our testing results to ensure that the product that they're getting is actually something that is handcrafted as quality, but has also been tested for things that people just want to know that they're tested for. So, which is becoming a more important part of cookware. today, especially. But yeah, I mean, very, very simple, but very complex because for, thousands and thousands of years, that really hasn't been the case with ceramic. So it's it's a material that's been around for a while, but not in a way that most people are used to using other pieces of cookware. So uh, it's very exciting because I think it's a new thing that a lot of people are really intrigued about, but don't have a ton of experience like cooking with it, like metal cookware. So
Absolutely. I have a few actually fun. It's more like a Japanese clay pots.
yeah,
And I love it. It's light and then it really maintains heat extremely well. Compare and then obviously non-toxic. And I love the fact that you guys are extremely transparent and also doing the testing because this is really important as we're like a testing company and then we know how much like stuff are contaminated. So this is the transparency piece is phenomenal.
yeah, 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 and it's like ceramics have such a rich history, and when we go over to China and we interact with our factory and people that make our products, and um the entire process of making our products, the 22-day process to hand make our products. Like there's so much history, with tea, with fermentation, with specific traditional dishes that are typically made in ceramics and not in other materials. And even in South America, you see, just this rich history of, you know, they're making the vessels that they're also cooking in and eating in. And so it's like a full circle sort of experience. And that's what I think my father really loved about ceramics is it's like one of the only materials where you make it, you shape it, you fire it with your hands, and then you use your hands to cook things and you put that in there and then you eat with your hands. It's like a completely full like it closes that loop of, everything that you want to do in your kitchen is handmade, but then what about the cookware you're using? And a lot of the cookware in America is not handmade. It's made for convenience, and it's made for profit margins and all of those things. So I think it's the historical piece is really cool because you feel like you're a part of something, a part of like a lineage
Mhm.
that came before you of all of these cultures that value ceramics as you know something that's really important part of their everyday life. And I think a lot of people, especially in the United States, see it as something that's you know decorative, art. They have it in their china cabinet, and they keep it in there, or it's serveware. But cookware is sort of like a new frontier. So
Love it. And you mentioned it multiple times about pure ceramic, and I know Xtrema is 100% ceramic, but in the market we have seen, just labeled as ceramic or labeled as coated ceramic. So tell us the difference. What's like between, 100% ceramic, and also coated ceramic.
yeah, so ceramic traditionally is made of inorganic materials, typically non-metallic. Um, is shaped and then is fired, right? So it's typically very hard, typically very brittle, um, typically like a heat insulator. So you think of things like pottery, you think of things like mugs and baking vessels and or storing vessels. Um, and so ceramics now has sort of evolved into technology. There's a lot of military applications. There's a lot of advancements that have been made that have kind of widened even glass, right? We talk about glass ceramic, and that's what like Corning did with Pyroceram and Corel dinnerware and things like that. So the term has been now applied to a lot of different things. And so I think what's confusing is a lot of people just say like ceramic cookware. And
Mhm.
what we think of ceramic and what I think the traditional definition of ceramic would be like something that is, shaped from clay and fired,
Mhm.
right? It's like
Mhm.
pottery, right? But um, now it's sort of just like we use some ceramic materials in our products, so therefore it is ceramic. Um, and so ceramic coated cookware essentially is just cookware with like an aluminum substrate, and then a very thin ceramic coating, typically applied through what we call Sol-Gel, and that would kind of fall under that alternate definition. It's an advancement of ceramic that's using ceramic-like materials, but is not traditionally what you would call pure ceramic, which is handcrafted and hand shaped from clay and then fired at typically high temperatures to make it all sort of permanently bond together. So
Yeah, I know those coated ceramic cookware, they don't last that long. Like very soon the coating seems to get worn off and then people just throw them out and then you have this piece of literally like undegradable like piece that goes
yes,
into the landfill.
so the kind of modern ceramic when we launched Xtrema in 2007. It was the same time that this was starting to shift, especially with the news that was coming out about PFOA, and eventually banning PFOA, and the news that was coming out about Teflon and potential risks to health. Um, and so the entire kind of ceramic coated cookware industry was created as uh, not necessarily something that was like a benefit, but something that was just not Teflon. So I think
Mhm.
the entire sort of marketing behind it was like, we're not Teflon, we don't have this, instead of like what we are really trying to show people, which is like, yes, that's a part of our brand. Like we do have testing. We can confirm that we don't use PFAs and all of these things. But the benefits of cooking with ceramics is why we created this, not because we wanted to create something that was not Teflon, right? And I think what ultimately happened is when you create an entire like cookware movement around that, oftentimes you don't focus on like what is the longevity, what is the potential, what is the quality. And so you get something that's not Teflon, and maybe it is more safe than Teflon to cook, or PFOA or PTFE, but uh, you don't get something that's durable. And it's actually probably less durable than Teflon
Mhm.
when you just look at the amount of cookware we're now throwing out that's
Yeah.
nonstick every year. It's not getting, that's not changing. That's just getting worse. So that's, I think that's the biggest problem, honestly, is we're throwing out nonstick cookware at a rate that is extremely concerning.
Yep.
And every study that I've seen, it's not extensive. We're trying to look for stuff that is more, data that's more extensive. But there's been a couple of countries that have tracked it. It's typically 1/5 of the population. So that would mean we're probably throwing out like 60 to 80 million nonstick pans a year in the United States, which is just shocking, you know?
Which is also contaminating the environment, which will come back, as you mentioned
Yeah.
before, like a full circle getting into our food systems and waters and
Yeah. And there are some brands, typically extremely expensive, right? That are, they don't have PFAs, right? They do the testing. You can get the access to these reports if you ask them and things, but those are not all of the brands, right? It's not all the 60 to 80 million. A lot of these are still Teflon pans with PFOA. A lot of them are, 9, 10, $12 pans that are ceramic coated that have PFAs, right? That aren't going those extra steps, right? It's not at that higher price point. So yeah, there are a few brands, right, that are kind of saying like we are trying to use safer materials and not cutting corners, but a majority are still not doing that. And so the waste issue, like you said, it's just what happens once it's there. How is it degrading? Is this
yeah.
stuff ever going to come out of our soil, our water, etc.? So that's the problem too, that I think you know materials like ceramic, like stainless, like cast iron solve for. That I think is a good first step for people to kind of whatever you do, move away from nonstick, because it's going to create an environment where we're not throwing out 60 to 80 million nonstick pans a year.
Absolutely. One thing I also want to mention is we often talk about regrettable substitutes. So even if a cookware that's labeled PFOA, PFOS free, that doesn't mean it's all
Right.
PFAS free. The whole class of chemical actually consists of over 9,000 of them. So manufacturers could still be using similar, structured PFOA for that non-stick coating. Unless you fundamentally change the material, you can't. Many times it's very hard to avoid, even though the label is labeling, PFOA or PFOS free. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and
people should definitely swap.
just from even like a general just effectiveness, like I think um sort of the nonstick craze was created by Teflon because it's one of the most durable hydrophobic substances that has ever existed. And so these new ceramic like coatings, right, are not. And I think people really got used to like you could be a little less careful with Teflon and like it was more durable, right? And the nonstick would release better over time. Like now it's some of these pans, they're 149.99 and it lasts 3 months, and then what do you do? You're buying a new one.
Yeah.
And so I think when you look at some things like stainless and you look at a set and you're like, wow, that's expensive. What we always try to encourage people is, like you can do one at a time, right? You can go, but realize that when you're switching away, like this is divided by like 30 or 40 years, like it ends up being like five, 10, $15 a year over the course of 40 years instead of replacing a $50 to $100 pan every single year.
Yeah.
Which is sort of the track that a lot of people are on when you get used to cooking with these nonstick, pieces of cookware.
Yeah. So one question we often get when we talk about ceramic versus like other type of cookware is people ask like, does ceramic actually alter the taste of the food at all?
So no, I mean that's one of the major benefits of ceramic is it's non-reactive. So you can cook acidic foods. You could cook tomatoes. Lemon juice, a sauce with vinegar in it. Stuff that you typically wouldn't do in like a cast iron. And you're not going to get that. Any sort of a taste, a minerally taste, or an irony taste, or some stuff that you do get when you use like a more reactive substance. Or you could get, depending on like how beat up your pan is or how long you've been using it, how many scratches are in it, etc. But that's one of the benefits. It's one of the main reasons why people will switch over. At least some of their cookware from cast iron to us is just the ease of cooking, the variety of things that you could cook with without having to worry. Um, and like you said, not getting that sort of like metallic taste or fear of anything sort of leaching from our product into your food or a sauce that you're cooking for a long period of time.
Mhm. And so for those who's never used the ceramics before, are there any considerations that they should make, anything that they need to do differently, versus cooking in a nonstick pan or like stainless steel pan?
Yeah, I mean, we have people coming from all different backgrounds and all different cooking levels and all different like cookware. So I think if you're somebody that is coming from, if you're a lifetime nonstick user, um, you're going to experience a similar break-in period to, cooking with like stainless. I think the difference is that with ceramic, because it's such an insulator of heat, right? You will get it will take a little bit more time to heat up, right?
Mhm.
But once it's heated, it'll actually hold it longer than its metal counterparts. So when you go to like turn it down or like adjust, um, it might take a little bit longer. And so sometimes that's where burning can happen with new users of our cookware. And so it's just typically that's why we say, stay between like medium and under, because once you get that, preheated and cooked, it'll maintain that temperature for a while and it'll maintain that consistency with even heating. But I think people are typically used to just kind of like turn it on and it's like, oh, it's not hot enough. And then you turn it up and you're like, oh, it's too hot. And then you turn it down. And like with Xtrema, you're not going to be able to do that as swiftly. And so that initial thought of like do I have it set at the right temperature for my stove? And then once that process is going, you're not really going to have to like fiddle with it a lot, because it's just going to hold that heat very well. And then a major benefit is that once you take it to the table and it's time to serve, um, it's hot, and it maintains that for the length of a meal, which is very nice for serving as well.
Especially in the winter.
Yes, for soups and stuff like that, it's phenomenal. For sauce, and that's one thing that we wanted. That's like part of why we love ceramics is like you cook in metal, and then typically you're transferring the food that you just cooked in metal to ceramic to serve in. So part of that sort of like idea in my father's mind was like, if you cook in ceramic, then you can just serve in the ceramic because it's beautiful enough and it's versatile enough to just take to the table and serve out of it. And so the idea of like one vessel cooking and serving and eating is something that we want to bring to kind of everybody's table, is that this cookware is a part of like all of those processes of from cooking to prepping to eating, and then cleaning. So
What about the non-stickness?
yeah, so once you really get used to how it heats, and you get used to, obviously, like everybody's cooking setup is different. So like a gas stove is going to really, be different than like a coil stove is going to be different than like a glass top electric. So once you kind of get that dialed in, um, we have so many customers that cook pancakes and eggs, and they get that slip slidey, all that stuff that you see on the infomercials. It just takes a little bit of time, but I think really it's fat and it's heat, and it's just kind of dialing that in. And so what we say is typically like there are better oils to use, typically ones with like a higher smoke point. So like that'll be like your avocado oil, um or like animal fats like ghee, or butter. Some people use tallow, but it's just kind of finding what that is. And then once you get that really preheating that pan correctly and you get that hot enough, people don't really have an issue. It's just that learning curve. It might be a week or two to kind of get used to that. But I would say that learning curve is there for people that are switching from nonstick to stainless, or nonstick to even like aluminum, or anything that would be kind of like your traditional cookware. You still have to kind of control heat and fat and the timing of doing that. And so we do lay that out with like some of our use and care, which is helpful. So if you do purchase, we do give you like a little guide that you can look at, and kind of some tips and tricks, which is nice.
So now talking about care, I mean, this is a pretty expensive piece of cookware that's going to last you a long time. So you need to take care of it. So how should you, take care of your ceramic to ensure its longevity?
So typically with ceramic, the one thing that is really important to just look out for is just rapid temperature change. So I think it's a very popular thing for people to do is you cook on the stove, and then once it's fully heated, and you're done cooking, you just kind of like cook it. You put it into the sink and you put the cold water on it, and it's super satisfying when you hear that sizzle. And with ceramic, what we would just suggest is just leave that on the stove, wait for it to cool down, and get to room temperature, and then go wash it. It's also safer to do that. If you've ever worked in a kitchen or anything, like putting hot pans in there, or it's it's probably best practice to let that cool down anyway, just so you don't have anybody reach in there and burn themselves. But that's where ceramic, with the porosity, that rapid temperature change can cause like thermal breakage. And that's something that we really test for, and something that we've really tried to innovate in the way that we formulated our products, so that we kind of overbuilt it, so that you could, it's not like you're going to make a mistake and be like, oh my gosh, and it's the whole bottom is going to fall out. But it's just kind of like a best practice things, just to just to do that. And like, for example, if you were like you had a soup in the fridge and you kept it in there and you stored it in the Xtrema, maybe waiting a little bit before you heat that up instead of just it's 40 degrees and then you put it on the stove. And there's been tons of times where I've forgotten and I've done that and it's fine, but that's just sort of like a best practice over the long term. And then really just sort of being mindful. Obviously, like it's a ceramic, it's a breakable product. I think what is interesting is like anything that is more expensive and is handcrafted and is made with intention. I think naturally there's something inside of us that just says like it makes us more aware, and you just take care of it. And so our breakage from accidents or bumps or bruises is actually like extremely low. And so we don't really have a lot of that. We don't have a lot of thermal breakage, but if any of that happens, we have a 10-year thermal crack warranty. So if something like that did happen, we'll send you a free replacement. And then say you did, it was your fault and you dropped it and, you have a broken piece of cookware. We have an accidental breakage policy. So we'll give you 50% off retail to repurchase that product if you want to. So that kind of gives you peace of mind to know that we back our products and, we're not going to leave you hanging if you have thermal breakage or, something happens. And because it's at the end of the day, we build our products for it to not do that. So, but over for just general use and care, it's best practice to, continue to be aware of those things, but it shouldn't do that over the lifetime of the product. But luckily it's very low, which is music to our ears. So
That's awesome. And you have a lot of great products. So on a high level, what do you sell? What are the type of cookwares do you sell?
So there's a couple different categories. So we have like our cookware, and then within that we have like skillets, and then we have more of like your saute pans, which have a higher lip. And then we have saucepans and stock pots. Our saucepans have a handle. Our stock pots, all same sizes. They just have two short handles. And then the largest product that we sell is our Dutch oven, our 10-quart Dutch oven, which is great if you bake sourdough, if you meal prep, if you cook a huge, batch of chili, or you're making pasta for a ton of people. And then we have bakeware and we have teaware. So we launched bakeware fall of last year, and that includes things like muffin pans, pie plates, baking pans, a lot of which are small enough to go into most modern toaster ovens, which is something that we thought about too. Especially when making like a six muffin pan instead of a 12, because a lot of people, especially in the morning, if you're baking something, it's much easier to just heat up in your toaster oven than to put it in your oven.
Yeah.
But something that we launched last year that we're really excited about and continuing to expand is teaware. And we have three teapots, two brand new designs. And we feel like there's nothing like it on the market. Obviously there's a ton of teaware serving vessels, and there's a lot of beautiful ceramics that are made throughout the world that are served in ceramics, but actual 100% pure ceramic tea kettles, we haven't seen a lot of those on the market, and so that's something that we're looking to expand as well, which we're really excited about.
That's cool. What are some top sellers?
So top sellers would be our signature skillet. 9-inch is typically what people go for because it's kind of like that perfect, not too big, not too small, just right sort of size. People also love the 9.5-inch fry pan, which has more of like a angled edge, which is just great it's great for eggs, great for if you like making omelets. It's sort of got that shape so that it makes that much easier to do. And then our sets are popular. our
Mm.
tradition set. People really like the handles. So it combines a saute pan with our saucepans, and people just generally like to, I think, have a handle. But also, uh, our Versa is popular, like our 12-inch
Oh,
Versa. It's the biggest. It's the biggest, saute pan or on top of the stove cooking vessel that we sell as far as like the circumference of it. So people would pick that typically over a skillet because of the short handles. So that you could essentially use for anything that you would use a skillet for. But then if you're like taking it to the oven to bake, it feels like it's like a baking vessel as well.
yeah.
So I think people like that they could go like stove to oven, and it's a little bit, easier to handle than like a skillet. Also for like the grill, like people love the Versa for the grill because sometimes the handle can get in the way if you have a lot of things on there when you're closing the top. So the short handles for like serving too, anything like that, it kind of is the kind of hybrid cookware bakeware item that we have. So uh, yeah, and then our retro tea kettle is a top seller as well. People love that. They love the size. They love it's easy to clean. They love the shape. They love the design. So those are a couple from each category.
So if you can only use two Xtrema cookware products like for the rest of your life, what are they? Which one would you choose?
That's hard. Only two. I would probably I would probably have to do. So I have a family, so it would probably be the 12-inch Versa because you could essentially do everything in that. And then it would probably be the 10-quart Dutch oven because we bake bread a lot at home. Uh, we'll make homemade bread like all weekly. So, and then you would have no limits as far as like the amount that you could cook. So for meal prepping and stuff like that, I would say if it was like just me, I would probably go like 9-inch signature skillet and 3.5-quart saucepan because those two you could do essentially any quantity that you would want to do for like 2 to 4 people, and still have it be like fit in like a smaller kitchen or a smaller setup. But for our needs, I would probably go 12-inch Versa and the 10-quart Dutch oven.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for sharing these, telling us the difference and your beautiful story. And then we have a really good turnout, a lot of people, and I think we had a couple of your royal customers commenting
That's awesome.
on how much they loved using Xtrema cookware. So thank you so much.
Thank you. That's just been great. I really appreciate you reaching out and setting this up and just getting to talk about stuff that we love, cookware. So
Absolutely. And everyone, thank you so much for joining. So be sure to follow Xtrema Cookware at XTREMA underscore cookware. So also check out the products, and then we're really excited for all your new product coming up. And then people really filling out this whole circle of, you know, getting the cookware, serving the food, and then eating together. Thank you.
absolutely. I thank you. Appreciate it.
Talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.